today we're talking about the fine line that INFJ walks all the time between insanity and genius. And I am very, very excited about this topic because it has a lot to do with self-reflection. It has a lot to do with understanding that we're not as perfect as we sometimes feel. And I know you probably won't say, well, I'm so perfect. As an INFJ, we actually think that, other people deserve so much more affection and attention, and we are really the saviors and the martyrs and all of that. And I understand where this is coming from, but that in itself has a lot to do with what we project to the outside, how we see the world, and understanding that our intuition isn't flawless. Like, just because you have the capacity to create great pattern recognitions, it doesn't mean that we always make the best choices, that we always gather the information and say that's exactly how it is and we're always right. We say INFJs are right very often, but it's like those 3% that we're not. It's those 3% that actually then get us into situations that we get stuck in, where we obsess over people for years. I've done this multiple times, where we feel like, the world is against us or the world is a certain way and we don't know how to get out of it, just to figure out, well, no, I was wrong all along. And recognizing that we can make mistakes and that there is such a fine line, and that we have to consider the fact that we might be wrong. And that in itself will open up a completely new horizon for you. It really helped me to create the life that I'm living now. It really opened my life up to a completely new thing. It's like looking back at how I lived. I was living in that little box of that little life, that feeling of being stuck and life's happening outside of me and something is missing, to feeling now I'm a co-creator with, you can call it the universe or whatever it might be. Like, we know it's all about how we react to a certain situations. Things happen, but it's really just a small aspect of it. And to understand that we have to be open to some possibilities that we might be wrong. Okay, before we go deeper into this, remember to download the free poster on the 5 pillars to an INFJ epic life. The 5 pillars are the basis of our bootcamp. They're the basis of my teachings, and they help INFJs to get on track with creating their INFJ epic life, being able to open their horizon, feeling excited about every day. So get that poster. You find all the information below. And if you want to go deeper into this, sign up for the waiting list for the bootcamp. We started our last round a couple of weeks ago, but there will be a new one in the beginning of the year. Our bootcamp is immensely helpful, and we have so many INFJs continuously joining, and so it's a growing community, and we actually see the results. So that's why I'm so excited about it. So go check everything out. The links are in the description. So before you get to a place where you say, well, I really don't want to listen to this, I know that I'm right. Well, ask yourself, is life happening the way you want? Because feeling like you're right doesn't mean that you say, well, my life is going great. It can be that you say, I know I'm right, that I have bad luck in this life, that I'm meant to be alone, that I'm meant to be misunderstood. All of these things are things that we have to reconsider, because our mind will rather get us into situations that will get us get hurt, that prove to us that yes, I deserve to be unhappy, that yes, I'm just, unlucky, that I'm an outcast. We will have our mind create situations for us that just repeat the cycle and prove this to us, then to get to a place where we have to admit to ourselves, no, I'm actually wrong. That is the first thing to understand. And it's sometimes hard for me to talk about this now, not because it's uncomfortable, but because I know certain things now, because I have been wrong. And I've been wrong so badly. I look at these situations and I wonder how I was able to be so convinced that that person understood everything that I was saying, that that situation would turn out a very specific way, because I knew people would react in certain ways, and they didn't. And these things really opened my mind up so much. And looking back, I knew that that was how the world worked. It wasn't that I thought of myself as, oh, I'm like this genius who knows everything. It's just that I was so sure of it. You're sure that there's oxygen in the air. You don't even think about it. And then recognizing that, there is this part of insanity and genius, because we as INFJs, think about it. What are are the things that really get us in trouble? What are the things that make us feel like, okay, now it really hurt me. Now I'm completely devastated. Now I feel like I'm at rock bottom. Those most of the time aren't the things that other people get upset over. It's situations where we say, oh, I'm going to go the extra mile. I'm going to, have a deep connection with somebody, or I'm going to dare to do something that is extraordinary, from a mental space of, how much I push others. Maybe I cross some boundaries because I think I can. And I think I can because of my intuition, because of the way I can understand others. So, a first and second function. And there is so much truth to that. Like, we have experience with that. But the biggest thing that comes, and the biggest thing that really allowed me to grow exponentially, was to understand how wrong I can actually be. Because you can have 98% of all the information right, and there's just some interpretation that you make that is just 2% of that whole equation that turns it into something completely different. I mean, we've talked about this before. Imagine like a situation where you have a relationship with a physically abusive person. We all know, there are no two opinions about this. This is something that most people actually understand who haven't been in such a situation. I personally have never been in a physically abusive relationship. I have not experienced things like this as a child, so I was never drawn to situations like this. These are just things I see in the media, or, I hear about certain things like way, way away from my life, but they do exist. And the point in that situation is that the person who actually accepts this, in their mind, that's okay. In their mind, they are right. In their mind, they are the one who are going to save the abuser. They're the one who has to have compassion for the other one. And so that person, the victim in that moment, knows they're right. They know that others are not going to understand it, so that's why they don't share that story, but they know that they're doing the right thing. That's how it feels, at least. For us as bystanders, it's very obvious that it doesn't matter if the abuser had a hard work day. It doesn't matter if they had like a lot of disappointment in their life and they experienced trauma in their childhood. You close the door of understanding the moment they get, physically abusive. That person cannot make that distinguishment, because in their mind, those 2% tell them there should be compassion for that person, and there should be such compassion that I'm willing to sacrifice my own well-being for it. For most INFJs, thankfully, that is not the case, but what we experience very often is an emotional abuse. It's not even necessarily that you say, okay, I'm in emotionally abusive relationships, but it can happen in situations where you say, okay, there's a situationship, there is somebody that, I think I want to be friends with, where we don't put up the right amount of boundaries because we know we're right about that person. We know we're right about that situation. And very often it's easiest to see that through other people, the relationships with other people for INFJs, because this is like so much of our basis and what our focus goes into. But it doesn't stop there. It can also be about like, I choose to have a certain life because if I dare to go bigger, if I dare to admit to myself that it's okay to want more, I will upset people around me. I will make them feel like they're failing at their life because I actually make something happen. All of that is actually that fine line between being a genius and being insane. Like, we're not really talking about like real insanity and being crazy, but I did have a reality break at some point. Like, I didn't take any medicine. I wasn't at a place where I didn't go to work or something like this. But for me, it really broke down the way I saw the world. It was cognitive dissonance because at some point I couldn't put together what was happening in my life with the way I saw the world. And the reason why it happened is because I pushed so much into, I know I'm right, I'm going to do the thing that nobody else does because I know better. My intuition is so strong, I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this. And remember, every single personality type tends to overextend their first function. Every single one. I've seen it with ENFJs, like their FE like goes bananas if they're not healthy. And that's how it is with us. We just go so deep into NI, we completely forget any touch with reality, and it can seem like insanity from the outside. And so getting to a place where you say, no, I actually am open to understanding that I might do some things that are, not very sane, and it's okay. It's okay for me to overstep that because I learned from it. I'm open to the fact that I might be wrong. I'm open to the fact that I'm not going to make always the right decisions, always the right interpretations, because I only have certain information available in my life. And we as INFJs are not the experimental types. So much of our knowledge comes from, the metaphysical, comes from making a big picture thing. We don't have that much data. And the more data you have through certain situations, the better you can grasp the fact that, you make mistakes. And that actually helps you to find that balance better and better. And since the moment I actually allowed myself to know you will make mistakes in your intuition, you cannot rely on your intuition all the time because you do have blind spots. Blind spots like TE, like externally observable facts, things that we don't like at all. If you make sure that some things are just intact, like for example, I've done this like in my youth all the time, obsess over a person and I think we have such a connection, but that person doesn't call me, doesn't show any interest in meeting me. Okay, we had one meeting and I felt like we had, eye contact, or we actually talked or it's like something happened afterwards. And I've had this like probably into my early 20s, and it took me like a long time to get out of it. And I was so convinced, there was something, there was such a connection, and that person really understands me and all of that, until I recognized, I'm actually neglecting some facts. And that told me that I can't just rely on my intuition. Like that physically abused person lets go of those 2% of thoughts, which is, it doesn't matter what they're going through. It doesn't matter if you had a connection, whatever it is, the moment they get physically abusive, you don't care anymore what they're going through, why they're happening this, as long as it you are suffering from it. And so the same thing, it doesn't matter if we had, some kind of connection. It doesn't matter if I feel like there's whatever it is. Fact is, the 2% are showing that person doesn't want to have any contact with you. And that has been extremely helpful for me to look at it this way, to see that, yes, there's some genius to our NI. Yes, there is some magic behind it. There are certain ways that we understand that we just know from pattern recognition. And there's so much truth to that. But we have to be open to the fact that we're going to do, let's call them insane things. It doesn't have to be like, something that is considered like crazy from the outside world, but things that are not in alignment with, how reality is actually playing out, with what we want out of it. And the more open we are to it, the more we can actually improve this genius quality of us. We all have genius qualities, right? Not just INFJs, but we all have it in different areas. Our genius is our pattern recognition. It's the way we understand other people. It's those internal worlds we get to create. And in order to get better at this, we have to take into consideration that we're making mistakes, that it's okay. We don't have failures. We either win or we learn. And that has allowed me to just grow in completely different ways than I thought possible. It opened up my world. And I see it with INFJs all the time in boot camp, in one-on-one coaching sessions, how that really changes the whole thing. So I'm not that naive to think that I understand the world completely now. I don't think I ever will, but I know that I understand my world better than I did a year ago, and hopefully in a year I will also understand it better because I allow information to come in. I make better choices, not perfect, but definitely better than when I was at a point where I thought, I know everything. And I'm open to admitting that I thought that. Again, that doesn't mean that you have to feel like you are superior. It can be that you say, I know that I'm an outcast. I know that I'm the outlier. I know that I'm here to just save others and not care about myself. It can be things like that. So you might tell yourself, okay, I'm actually altruistic. I'm actually thinking about other people, but that we hold on to the way we see the world and we're not willing to budge a little bit. Okay, remember to download the poster. It will really help you to get out of some of those things, because if you focus on improving your life and creating a better future for yourself, you'll be able to make way better rational decisions and understand where some of your shortcomings are coming from and how you can avoid them. And if you want to go deeper into this, remember to sign up for the waiting list on the bootcamp. We're going to have our next one starting in January, I think, so it'll be perfect for the new year. If you want to work with me one-on-one, you can also do this. The information is below. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video of Is the INFJ Made to Be a Lone Wolf?